Hello again, and welcome to another edition of All Things Football. Today, after a very, very long absence, we've got our big brother Riaz, all the way from Saudi Arabia. How are you doing? Welcome back.
All right. Thank you very much. It has been long. I can't remember the last time I was actually on one of the shows to discuss football, but I'm happy to be back.
I see it coincided with Man United not doing so well, eh? So bottom half of the table. So I see you timed it well to avoid any interaction so that we couldn't give you any banter. But I haven't forgotten. I will try and give you banter as much as I can.
Listen, I just want to say it's got nothing to do with how grateful United have been this season. And if you wanted me to really give a response about United and how they've been performing this season, we'll probably do a weekly episode. And I'd be saying the same stuff over and over. So yeah, but look, things are looking a bit better in terms of what Amorim's trying to do and so on. I think I mentioned to you as well. I think the last two games, defensively, we've looked a lot stronger. It's just we lack quality in the final third, and we can't put the ball in the back of the net. So, football's about putting the ball in the back of the net. It's about winning games, and that's a missing piece of the puzzle at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. But we will definitely go into more detail in future episodes about Manchester United. But this episode in itself, we are focusing on the Champions League and the Champions League quarterfinals. We've got some mouth-watering games. Riaz, where do you want to start? Which game are you most looking forward to of the four matches?
Well, I think everybody will say Real Madrid, Arsenal, but I think we'll keep that for last. All of the fixtures look very appetizing. I think let's kick off with Bayern and Inter. What I will just say is regarding Bayern, I mean, they last defeated Leverkusen in the last round 5-0 quite convincingly against the German champions. And if you look at their form in the Bundesliga, they lead Leverkusen in the Bundesliga as well by 6 points. In the last 5 games, they've had 3 wins and a draw. The only defeat came against VfL Bochum, which was a shock at home at the Allianz Arena. And they beat Augsburg this weekend 3-1. So their form's been very good, which you expect of them domestically. But whether they can really progress further and actually go on to win the Champions League is another thing, especially with Vincent Kompany in the dugout. I think as the Champions League season progresses, it'll be a test for him as a young manager.
The key thing is because you've got good players to work with, and when you're playing against opposition that you're probably better at, then tactically it's not as important. But now when you come to the latter rounds of the Champions League, you're up against teams who are probably just as good as you, and then it becomes about who can make some strides in the tactical area. And I think that's where Kompany is still questioned on, and I think that's going to be where he's going to have to answer some of those questions. So I think it's going to be interesting. With this fixture, both teams are top of their respective leagues, both probably going to win their domestic leagues again. Bayern obviously didn't win it last year, but they've won it so many times in recent years. And then Inter, the same thing, also probably the best team in Italy over the last few years. So I think that's what makes this game so interesting, is that both teams already sort of have silverware sorted on in one area, but can they go for the big one, the Champions League? And they've both got excellent players, so I think it's going to be entertaining.
I think the thing is with Inter, I mean, if you look at Serie A, it's a lot more competitive than what the Bundesliga is. Inter, like you rightfully said, Inter are top of the Serie A. They lead Napoli by 3 points, and there's been a lot said about Napoli, how they're performing the season under Conte, and especially with ex-United players like Lukaku and McTominay making their way there. So they've been doing well, but it's a lot more competitive than what Bayern are facing in the Bundesliga. And interestingly enough, Inter played Parma this weekend. They were leading 2-0 going into halftime and ended up drawing the game 2-0. So that's something you really can't afford to have happen when you come up against a team with the quality of Bayern. And even them in Serie A, their last 5 games, they're undefeated. They've had 3 wins and 2 draws. And they defeated Feyenoord in the last round quite comfortably 4-1 on aggregate. So this is it's a difficult tie to predict. I think most traditionalists will probably say Bayern will go through because they've got better European pedigree, but it's very difficult to predict. And Inter are not going to be a walkover. It's going to be a tough game. It wouldn't surprise me if Inter do go through. But that game in Germany is going to be a big test for them and very important to see how they do it at the San Siro and how they can follow up.
Do you think playing away from home in the first league is better for you because you can sort of go defensive and try and keep it tight and then have the second leg at home with your own fans where you know more or less what is required? Or do you think it works the other way around? You get momentum by doing well in the first league at home with your fans behind you, and then you go away knowing that you've got something to protect.
I think personally for me, I like seeing my side play away first. But I think this season, not having the away goals rule has also, bettered games, so to say. I think sometimes if you're an away team and you score an away goal and then you see alternate defensive performances from away teams, then you don't want to see that. And I think the previous stars we've seen have been absolutely fantastic. So for me personally, I like to see my team away from home first, but it's difficult to say because if you don't execute your game plan well and you're conceding goals and you lose your head and so on, then it leaves you with a lot to do in the second leg. Certainly stuff to say, but again, for me, away first. What do you think?
Yeah,
What would be your preference?
I think away first also because you sort of work out your opponent in terms of what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are as you play them. And then when you at home, you have a bit more momentum. You now know more or less what their strengths and weaknesses are. So you can then try and counter that and actually get the better of them. But you've also got your home fans to give you that extra 5 or 10% that you need. So I think away
Yeah.
from home definitely helps. Even though there's no away goals rule, I think it does help, and I think it makes it interesting. But with Bayern and with their fans and that stadium, it's an incredible stadium, and the atmosphere is always electric. So if they score early, or they score a few goals at home, then obviously it will be a tough task for Inter. So I think it doesn't actually matter as much as perhaps it did in years gone by, where away goals rule accounting and things like that. But I think it's going to be fairly evenly poised, and I don't think it is a huge advantage either way, whichever way you look at it.
And Harry Kane's in good form as well, again, like he was last season. I think because Bayern never won anything last season, his performances were not talked about as much. But he's settled into life very well in Germany and in the Champions League, and he's been prolific this season as well. So yeah, there's that element for Inter to deal with as well.
And
Let's talk about. Yeah, you want to say something?
no, so and another player that I love watching, especially when I do get the opportunity, is Michael Olise, and he played against Croatia, and he didn't start the first leg in the Nations League for France, and they lost that game 2-0. He started the second leg, and they won it on penalties eventually, but he scored the first goal in that game, and he was magnificent. Every time he touched the ball, something sort of happened. So I think it's a player like him could be the big difference between these two. And I'm excited to just watch this guy because of him. I think he's really a talented player and someone to watch.
Yeah, talking about Michael Olise, the next guy that we can actually talk about is, of course, quite a few wonder kids, Lamine Yamal being one of them, Barcelona against Dortmund. I don't think there's anyone who thinks that Dortmund can actually pull one over Barca. What's your take on that, guy?
Yeah, look, I think Barca, because they're a young team, they still have that inconsistency in them. They've had a very good season thus far, did I think finish second in the group phase of the Champions League. They are top of La Liga, so they're having an excellent season. But you do know that they are capable of slipping up at any moment as well. And they drew at the weekend, despite Real Madrid winning their game, losing their game. A win would have made the gap 6 points, but then Barcelona drew at home to Real Betis. So I think they are capable of conceding the odd goal and just maybe not playing as expected. So because they're a young team, that is to be expected. So I think I think this star is not a foregone conclusion. I think although Barca are clear favourites, there's two things we need to factor in. One is the fact that I said they're a young side, Barca, so they will have ups and downs, and all players go through that, and especially young players. So I think they will have some tests coming their way. And the other thing is Dortmund reached the final of the Champions League last season without losing too many of their players. Yes, they've lost some players, but I think they've still got the core of their squad from last season. So we can't underestimate them. They proved so many teams wrong last season, and I wouldn't write them off. Not at this stage, not at the quarterfinal stage, definitely not.
Okay, I'll say this. I will be shocked if Dortmund won over Barca. So, yes, they've made the final of the Champions League last season. They've still got the core of their side that took them to the final last season. But Erden Terzic was a big factor in them making the final. He left. Nuri Sahin came in. Dortmund are they were floundering in the Bundesliga. They've recovered somewhat now under Niko Kovac. So they were 10th and nowhere until Nuri Sahin got sacked 10th to 11th. Kovac has come in. They've been getting good results. They've been scoring goals. They've looked right there at the back. I think they are now they're in 8th place, I think, in the Bundesliga, but they're only 5 points off the Champions League spots. So if they have a great surge at the end of the Bundesliga season, they can still make top 4 in Germany. And if you look at their last 5 Bundesliga games, 3 wins, 2 defeats. They hammered Freiburg this past weekend away from home 4-1, and Freiburg are above them in the league. And then, yes, you are right with what you say about Barca having youngsters and so on. But I think as the season has gone on, often youngsters are sort of paired up with, inconsistencies. I think recently, though, they've been more consistent. They've been undefeated in the last 5 La Liga games. Those were 4 wins until, like you rightfully said, they now to Betis 1-1. That must be down to Anthony, the GOAT. And then they also beat Benfica in the last tie of the champion, in the last round of the Champions League. They're in the Copa del Rey final. They smashed Real Madrid in the Super Cup final. Like you said, they top of La Liga by 4 points now. So, it's going to take a lot for Dortmund to overcome Barca. I think the season will be a disappointment if Barca don't progress to the semi-finals at least. And for me, they are one of the strong favorites to win the tournament. So yeah, I'm gonna go slightly against what you said. I'm gonna say Barcelona for me, overwhelming favorites, and they should make it through to the next round.
I think with this tie, I personally would like to see Barcelona progress because I feel that we have the potential to have 4 superpowers in the semi-finals. If all the teams that we expect to go through. So I would like to see Barcelona go through, and I think it would be nice to have 4 semi-finalists who are all capable of going all the way. Last season Dortmund got to the final unexpectedly, and there was a few quarterfinalists who were also quite a surprise to see them at that stage. So I think I would personally just like to see a bit more of the traditional big guns come to the final and just see the semi-final, so that we can then see who the best of the best really is if they play off against each other. So personally, I want to see Barcelona, and as you said, they're having a fantastic season. Copa del Rey final, top of La Liga, and potentially a Champions League semi-final. So I would like to see them go on and do well because of the talented squad that they have. But I think, yeah, I'm going to be also hoping they do well. But as I say, I don't think it's going to be as wide a margin as everyone else expects.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the margin so much that I expect to, see be wide, but I think it's more that I feel that Dortmund don't really stand that much of a chance progressing. But hey, stranger things have happened. So, talking about stranger things happening, who would have thought Aston Villa were going to be in the quarterfinals of the Champions League under Unai Emery, but now they've got a serious test on their hands, PSG. I think we can all say that PSG should not have lost the home tie against Liverpool. They were all over them. Alisson stood out of his skin in that first leg. Second leg as well. For an away team, PSG really came at Liverpool. They gave it to them. They lacked the finishing. But I think everybody, maybe except Liverpool supporters, will say that PSG deserve to go through. They've wrapped up, the French league, so now they can fully focus on the Champions League. Like I said, they beat Liverpool in the last round, and nobody will say they did not deserve to go through. In fact, the only home loss recently has been that home loss to Liverpool, which they didn't deserve. And since beating Liverpool at Anfield, they've won 4 in a row in France. I think one came in a cup game against Dunkirk. And there's a lot of reports saying that the camaraderie and the chemistry in the side is very good now that they've gotten rid of Mbappe, and Luis Enrique has been able to mold the side and mold the culture of the squad a lot better. So, listen, I don't ever think I would have seen myself saying this, but I would love to see PSG win the Champions League. What do you think Villa's chances are against PSG? Because they really performed. They didn't do that well in the league stage. But what do you think of Villa's chances now against PSG?
Look, I think Villa are a good team, and on their day they can beat anyone, especially at home at Villa Park. But I think over 2 legs, that's where you really are tested. A one-off result you can do, but over 2 legs you really need to have your wits about yourself. So I think I don't think Villa have as good a chance. I think PSG were far and beyond the better team against Liverpool, and Liverpool are or have been the most consistent team in England this season. So for them to have proven to do that to the best team in England, the chances are they are going to have too much power and too much ability for Aston Villa. So I think this will be the one tie where the margin will be the biggest in terms of aggregate score and all of that. I think PSG were sublime in both leagues. If you take away the actual result of each game against Liverpool, the actual performance in both leagues it was really excellent. And I think,
Yeah,
considering the fact that I obviously watched a few games of PSG because they were in the same group as Newcastle last season. And when we beat them last season at St James's Park, yes, I have to mention it. When we beat them 4-1, that looked like a team that was all about egos, all about I'm here
yeah,
to sort my own career out. Don't worry about the
yeah,
team and whatever. They look like that. They look like individuals playing for PSG. Whereas now they look like a team
yeah,
and a unit that is playing for PSG. And you can just see like Liverpool started, I think, strongly in the first few minutes of the first leg. But it was like PSG were just like, don't worry, we've got this. We're going to play our game.
yeah,
We can do things our way. And then they took over and then they dominated the rest of that game,
yeah,
although they conceded a late goal and lost. But you could just see that this was a team that had self-belief, that had a
yeah,
togetherness, that had the manager's backing and were going all out to protect, the manager as well. So I think that they are a completely different team to last season. And as you say, they're pulling together as one, and they've got so much talent in their squad that if it's not Barcola doing well, it's Dembele. If it's not Dembele, it's one of the midfielders, and it's just they just look like a really well-rounded team, and I think they will blow PSG, they will blow Villa away. And as you say, I think I would, for once, I would actually be happy if they do win the Champions League. Last season, I sort of hated PSG for the way they got that late penalty against Newcastle in Paris, which I thought was an injustice. But and then they lost in the semi-finals. This time around, I actually think because of the way they played this season, they've been a joy to watch, and they've definitely been a team that I wouldn't mind seeing go all the way. But this is a Champions League, and no tie, especially at this stage, is a given. But I think this will be the biggest margin.
yeah. I think the Dembele that we're seeing now this season is a Dembele that everybody's been waiting to see his whole career. And he's been fantastic. And like you said, Barcola as well. He's a lot to handle and so on. If you look at Villa, they obviously they exceeded expectation with this run in the Champions League. And they're going about their work very quietly in the Premier League. They're only 2 points off Chelsea. I think Villa in seventh, if I'm not mistaken. So only 2 points of Chelsea. And like we discussed off air, obviously that fifth spot is also up for grabs in the Premier League regarding Champions League football this season. Just a quick question. One of Villa's key players this side or this the side of the transfer window after January has been Marcus Asensio. Is he eligible to play against PSG?
I'm actually not too sure. I want to actually I've got the page open. Let me see if I can find
Because
out.
the thing
Yeah.
is, right, I mean, playing against his current employer, that's a big deal. He's been a massive catalyst for Villa, especially in attack. I would love for him to play. I'm also not sure. I couldn't find anything to stipulate or confirm whether he is eligible to play. So just confirm that for us, because I mean that throws a massive spanner in the works. Who would have thought that, when PSG put him out on loan to Villa, that he'll actually possibly play against him.
Yeah, that's the thing. If he does play, which I'm just trying to check now. But one thing that I've also noticed is that Villa made some good signings in the January transfer window, which sort of rejuvenated the squad. And as you say, they're now 2 points off a top five place, and they're within a shout of actually finishing in the top five, which is amazing. But I think with them, they're going to be tested now because I think with PSG, they are relentless like no other team. From what I've seen this season, is they get the ball, and the moment they lose it, they get it back within a few seconds. And Cavalier, I don't know, that's my best.
But actually, yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's my best pronunciation of his name, but he's a superb player, and
yeah,
you,
he's
if
wonderful.
you're going to worry only about him, then you've got Dembele on the other side. If you're going to worry about him, you've got the Barcola in the middle. If you're going to worry about them three, then the midfield three of Ruiz and Vitinha and
Yeah,
I think it's Shao.
Neves, Raul
Yeah,
Neves, yeah,
the three of them are also, as a trio, they are excellent. They win
yeah,
the ball back. They
they are
are
superb.
combative. They are skillful, and they dictate the tempo of the game. So I think that's the problem with Aston Villa is that they are going to be tested like you don't normally get in the Champions League, because yeah, the group stages. Certain teams maybe might be resting players, might have a big league game coming up and whatever. The knockouts is a different story, and PSG
Yeah.
are the best of those. So I'm just looking at the team sheet or the possible lineups. It doesn't show Asensio here.
Yeah, so
So
I also checked the possible lineup for the game, and I also didn't see him there. But I couldn't find anything, like I said, to confirm that he's definitely not playing in the side. But anyway, be that as it may, they will need him, and if they don't have him, yeah, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be tough for Villa with him, so
yes,
it's going to just be that much more tough, without him.
I've got another question. Another player that was signed by Villa and a player that the media are hyping as being back in form, Marcus Rashford.
Yeah,
What is your take on him? Because personally, okay, I'm going to give my view first and then I'll hand over to you. Personally, I feel he hasn't been playing that great. I mean, he's got a few assists, he's got a few goals, but I think his overall play has not been so amazing that, he's back in form, he's back in the England side.
yeah.
Yes, he is back in the England side. He played a couple of games recently and seems to have been playing better, but I don't think he's blowing people away the way the media are taking or saying. What is your take on that?
I agree with you. I think Marcus Rashford, it just shows how the reporting differs based on which club you appear for. And I thought he was actually lucky to be called up to the England squad, to be quite honest, because prior to that, there were games where he was sitting on the bench where he wasn't playing. And also, like I watched these games and I watched Villa and that, and his performances look decent to average. Like you said, it's not like wow, he did an amazing job or great. From a United perspective, we'd want him to do well so that when we offload him, because I think it's pretty much certain now that Amorim doesn't want him and wants to move him on. So we'd want him to do well, similar to Anthony, so that we can, generate a good fee and some revenue for their sale. Um, but yeah, I don't. I echo your sentiment. I don't feel that he's been as great as some of the media are making him out to be. Um, yeah, but that it is what it is. We're not in control of whatever the narrative is that the media tries to put out there. In fact, I think Asensio has been much the better performer than he has. I mean, he's been better in terms of his performances and his goal and contribution regarding goals and assists. So yeah, that's where I weigh in with the Marcus Rashford discussion.
Can agree on that.
And
But
then
now we've got just under 10 minutes left. So now we go on to the big game or the big tie for us personally, Real Madrid against Arsenal. How do you see this one going? Arsenal, obviously 11 points behind Liverpool, so the title ambitions are sort of gone by the wayside. How do you see this going, given that Arsenal haven't been in the Champions League latter rounds for quite a few years now?
look, I think this is Arsenal's last opportunity to actually get some silverware this season. They've never won the European Cup. I don't see it happening this season. They're just too inconsistent to offer Liverpool a proper challenge in the league in the closing stages. I feel. I mean, they drew Everton on the weekend, and that for them was a must-win. And yeah, if they putting all the eggs in one basket for the Champions League, it's a dangerous game to play because they're playing Real Madrid. To be fair, the fans have been asking for Real Madrid. Well, you got what you asked for. And we know Real Madrid can be in terrible form. But when it comes to the Champions League, they are the preeminent team. They are the bosses of the Champions League. They will find any which way of winning and getting across the line. So I think, look, this weekend's loss to Valencia for Real Madrid at the Bernabeu would have hit them really deep and hard, and they're going to come at Arsenal. And it's going to be interesting to see how Arsenal perform against Real Madrid. You asked earlier about how crucial or the importance of having a home fixture first. Well, I think Arsenal, need to make the most of home ground advantage here in this league because Madrid at the Bernabeu is going to be very, very difficult. And also for Arsenal, Gabriel is out for the rest of the season. That's the key defender with William Saliba at the back, and I think that's going to be a huge plus for them because not only does he help them defensively, but he chips in with goals from set pieces. So I think that's a big loss for them. Um, Listen, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I don't like the Arsenal fan base. They've got a good side. I think Arteta has done well at Arsenal. I don't think they'll win anything significant under Arteta, which is a shame because he has done a good job, despite my feelings about him. But where I was against Real Madrid in the last round when they knocked out Atletico controversially, I'm for Real Madrid in this round. I'd love to see them knock Arsenal out. Um, it's going to be very tough. This is Arsenal's biggest challenge against the biggest club in the world. And for Madrid, they're chasing Barca. They're in the Copa del Rey final. But this is their tournament, and they're going to want to add to it. So, it's going to be an amazing battle of wits between Ancelotti and Arteta. So, look, I'm just going to watch the game and enjoy the game. But wow, it's going to be mouth-watering. I can't really pick a winner. Look, obviously, I want Madrid to go through, but it's going to be very tough to say who could win. I mean, Arsenal could knock them out, but I hope it doesn't happen. And to be honest, I give Madrid the advantage.
Yeah, I agree. Give Madrid the advantage as well. I think they are not, or Arsenal are not as strong as they probably think they are, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. They don't really have a top class striker available,
Yeah,
or they haven't had one consistently. So that impacts the team because sometimes you just need a goal from out of nowhere and a striker to poach a goal, but they don't really have that as a viable option, I would say. Marino has done well to come into the team and score some goals, but ultimately the all-round game that a normal, natural centre forward does give you, they don't have at the moment. So, and then, as you say, Real Madrid are the type of team that can play badly in the game, So Arsenal could dominate the game, but Madrid could still score 3 or 2 goals in the game, and really upset the tie. So that's the thing with Real Madrid is the midfield isn't as strong as it was in years gone by. So potentially Arsenal could win the midfield battle or do well in midfield. But the problem is the moment you're going to get a counter attack, Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, they're going to be all over Arsenal. And any little bit of space that they get, they're going to poach and score. So I feel that Real Madrid are definitely going to score in the first leg. And that then swings it, the questions onto Arsenal. Can they stay in the tie before going to the Bernabeu? And I don't think they can. So even if Arsenal score 1 or 2, I think Madrid will do that. And then, given the pedigree that Madrid have, they'll have too much for Arsenal. And I think as we I wanted to point out as well, Arsenal are a side that when they come under severe pressure, they can't handle it. We played them in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, and they played their
Yeah,
strongest team, and we won them 2-0 home anyway. So it's like
yeah,
they just can't handle when a team is in their faces at them and has similar qualities as them. They
yeah.
can't really handle that at this moment in time. Obviously, if they recruit well, they can get back to where they want to be. But I think at this point in time, I don't think they'll have enough to give Madrid
Yeah,
a strong.
I, I think it's interesting you mentioned pressure because I think the Arsenal admin of the account on Twitter tweeted a few months ago that pressure is a privilege. And since they tweeted that, every time there's a pressure situation, they capitulate, they fall. And it's true what they say when they absolutely have to win something, they don't win it. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. I think Bayern Inter. I think it's safe to say we both expect Bayern to go through. Barca Dortmund. I think we both expect Barca, although you said you think Dortmund will give them a run for their money. PSG Villa, I think it's overwhelming. We both said PSG. And then I think we're both going with Madrid over Arsenal. So, okay. So
That's
let's see how things pan out.
Yeah,
It's
I
going
think
to be some interesting games.
yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be some interesting games, and because it's probably both games at the same time, I think I will try and follow both games as best as I can and just see what's happening. But I think all 4 games has something in it to make it interesting, and that's what makes these quarterfinals fascinating. Riaz, I want to thank you for your time, for joining us. I hope that the next time you join us, it's not going to be such a long time again. And hopefully that you join us soon and we can chat about the Champions League and the last few matches of the Champions League.
No problem. It's been brilliant being on again. Time flies when we speak about football. So, yeah, let's enjoy these games and then we can talk again.